Did my phone was my watch?
Galen, can you give me a mic check?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Hi, Galen.
Hey there, Diane.
We're gonna fly because I've had so much coffee today. Oh my god.
That's great.
Maybe we should like have coffee dispensers for the whole meeting and then go so fast.
Let's go full Red Bull.
I don't do those kind of drinks.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's probably going to short my lifespan by 20 years, but it works.
I find that I'm inching more and more towards just straight espresso.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just gonna be like chewing coffee beans and snorting them.
Build up that immunity to it, right?
Yeah, I know.
Maureen said she would be joining us, but I haven't seen her popped on. I'll keep an eye out. I believe she's feeling a bit under the weather as well, so I'm not.
Oh, God, everybody's sick.
Yeah, it's that time of year apparently. So we do technically have a quorum of the committee, so if you want to go, we can.
Well, I'll give her like 30 seconds. That's fair. Without coffee, that's the equivalent of 5 minutes. They're really straightforward anyway.
Yeah, we could number of one.
Actually.
Let's start at 6:33. I will call the policy committee meeting of the Madison Board of Ed to order. We have a bunch of policies to go through. We're starting with policy for rescission, policy number 6070.3, curriculum pilot projects. This is not a mandatory policy, and Shipman and Goodman recommend repeal because the policy is unnecessary. Policy does not require the district to engage in any action, and the district may engage in such pilot programs with board policy. I recommend rescinding this with waiving the second read. Thoughts, comments, Galen?
How often do we use pilot programs?
You know, I think in a larger sense, not all that often. So an example of one that is happening this year is that you know, the pilot program for the reading program that we're actually buying this year. I consider that like a program piece. You know, we talked previously in curriculum today where, you know, books might be tried out. I don't think that's a pilot program. You know, I wouldn't call that. That's kind of like just a you know, trying out a book or a novel or something like that. But I think in terms of a pilot program, you know, not all that often, and for the most part, we're letting the board know it's you know, pretty public. It's not like a you know, something that you know, is on a smaller scale or not, you know, transparent.
Okay, so we certainly don't need to incentivize it as a matter of policy. It's there as a tool in the toolbox if we want it. Not
Yes.
that big a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I feel like we're doing it under curriculum right now, and it kind of falls under
Yes.
curriculum, not necessarily policy.
Right. Yeah, it's not like anybody's going to forget, oh, we could use a policy or a pilot program, right?
Right. No, it's a pretty common thing that's talked about. It's just, you know, it's not happening too often.
Okay, off with its head.
So you're good with rescission and waiving second read?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, now we're gonna look at policies for review. The first one is policy number 2300, hold on the destruction of records. Shipman and Goodman revised the policy in light of new guidance issued by the Connecticut State Library Office of the Public Records Administrator on June 4th, 2024. The new guidance reverses the previous guidance and no longer permits public agencies to maintain internal digitization policies in lieu of seeking disposal authorization. The revised policy reflects OPRA's new guidance and updated procedures and forms for disposition of original source records that have been converted to digitized records and or when the district seeks to digitize and dispose of the records on an ongoing basis. I didn't have any issues with the changes, maybe this, we don't really have any, we have to accept it anyway, but I didn't have any issues with it. Any thoughts or comments on this? I don't
I-
recommend that we waive the second read on this because it's a mouthful.
I echo that.
All right, so then we'll recommend board to rescind and replace. Next policy is 4111.1, security check / fingerprinting. Shipman and Goodwin say that state law requires boards of ed to conduct employment history reviews before offering employment, blah, blah, blah. Public Act 24-41 amends the requirement, specifies that an applicant's previous employers are not required to disclose information about a substantiated allegation of abuse or neglect or sexual misconduct if the substantiation was reversed as a result of an appeal to the Department of Children and Families, DCF. We have revised this policy in light of that change. They also revised the policy to clarify the Board of Ed's responsibilities under the Fair Credit Reporting Act when deciding whether to take adverse actions against prospective employees. If you look at the policy, we're changing the name, we're removing the .1 and changing it to just policy number 4111. It will now be called Employment and Student Teacher Checks. It is in the personnel section in the 4000 series. And then the rest of the changes, almost everything remains the same, except for, you'll notice lines 126, 127, 132, 133, 139, 140. That's all added unless such substantiation was reversed as a result of an appeal to DCF. It's changed that Shipman and Goodwin noted. Everything else, I believe, remains the same, except for lines 453 through 457. Which also says the district would give the potential employee a reasonable amount of time, i.e. at least 5 days, to dispute any of the information in the report prior to making any final employment decision. And if the adverse action is taken based on information from the report, blah, blah, blah. So everything else remains the same. It's just those two areas. I would say, recommend to rescind and replace and wait a second read.
I agree, Dr. Cook, do you have any concerns about changing?
No, not at all. This is helpful to move this as fast as possible. We're getting into hiring season and we obviously do follow the laws, but having the updated policy is very cool.
Great, thank you.
You good with waiving the second read?
Yes,
Just minimal changes and it's pretty easily documented.
I agree.
Okay. Moving on. Policy 5131.911. This is in the student section 5000 series, bullying prevention and intervention. We're going to change it to just 5130 from that number. And then it upgrades the definition of bullying. Shipman and Goodwin say effective July 1, 2025, all boards of ed must adopt the new definition of bullying detailed in the Safe School Climate Policy approved by the Connecticut Social and Emotional Learning and School Climate Collaborative. There's no acronym for that. We have made other technical revisions to this policy, including elimination of outdated policy language. So again, this is another policy. We need to make the changes. It needs to be done ASAP. You can see lines 26 through 28 is the updated definition of bullying as required by law. And then if you look at lines 40 through to 56, these updated definitions of discrimination and harassment, some other minor changes. Really just some technical things where we remove the very lengthy name of the department and they call it just the collaborative. So the main thing is the definition changes. I don't know your thoughts, Dr. Cook, of waiving a second read on this. How fast do we need to get it into play?
It's not till July 1, but so take your time, it can have 2 reads, it's fine.
What do you think, Cameron?
I think we should have 2 readings. I don't
Okay,
think
yeah,
it's
was
going to
thinking
make a
2
difference,
readings.
but
Yeah,
people should be able to absorb it.
yeah. I mean, it's not a lot of changes, but I think 2 reads is appropriate as long as it's, it has to just get through. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one where the language on the website isn't going to change to July 1 to avoid any confusion for
Right.
folks who might need the
Okay.
correct definition. So really, we do have time. I just wanted it in motion, so I didn't bring it to you in May, and then everybody go, wait, what? We had to do it, turn it over really fast.
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's good. So, any comments or questions regarding this particular?
we'll do training of staff, as we do with any, policy change. We review administration, but this is one we'll do training with, the staff, all staff as well.
All right, so we will not waive the second read, but we will move that forward for rescind and replace. All right, so now the next policy is 5131.914, Safe School Climate Policy. We're going to be changing this to the number 5131, Safe School Climate Policy. In your packet, you will have a copy of the Connecticut School Climate Policy, which says for the school year commencing July 1, 2025, and each school year thereafter, each local and regional Board of Ed shall adopt and implement the Connecticut School Climate Policy. And then you will find a challenging behavior reporting form in the packet and a copy of the current policy. And then a copy of the revised policy. This is definitely going to need 2 reads. So essentially, we have to adopt this.
And
Yes.
there's, I checked with Shipman directly, there are no tweaks, nothing, you adopt as the collaborative adopted, we use it's the exact language from the collaborative.
And just to note that the school climate coordinator will be the superintendent. And the school climate specialist will be the principal of each school. Oh, you know what, that was interesting though. I just want to point out, not that we're going to change anything. But if you look at line 203 to 206, it says for the school year commencing July 1, 2025, and each school year thereafter, each school climate specialist shall appoint members to the school climate committee who are diverse, including members who are racially, culturally, and linguistically representative of various roles in the school community. And wow, I just find that like a big mouthful because like, considering our community is like the vast majority considered white, then if we are representative of the roles in the community.
And that would include Phillies fans too, I think. That'd be a good
Well,
diversity.
it definitely doesn't.
Okay.
Anyway, we adopt this as is. I just want to make that point.
I think we should encourage all board members to read it so they know exactly
yeah.
what the policy is. I mean, not just perfunctory second reads, but here's your homework, please know what this involves.
But I did think it was interesting with this policy is that like it talks a lot about the committee and who was designated as the like all of those things, but the challenging behavior reporting form is like how, and there's an investigating form and then a response notification form, so it's all very like this is how it's done. No matter what, no matter where, no matter who. But the current policy versus the new policy, they're like, I think they're very different because the current policy actually talks about what more specifically what would happen for like each type of event. Like there's the teen dating violence and the and the versus the bullying, and it's like very specific based on what was done, whereas the new one is sort of like a blanket approach of like, this is our climate policy, and then this is the form for everything. And I just wanted to note that difference, and I didn't know you wanted to speak to that at all, Dr.
Yeah, I think in terms of overall, I will say, I think that we welcome these changes. Oftentimes when family may hear that there's a bullying report, that word in particular is certainly a trigger, certainly a concern, and it oftentimes will shut down one of the parties' participation in the process. But really what we're trying to do is just solve an issue and get students back on the right track, and make sure that whatever happened doesn't happen again and everyone learns from it. So this is welcome. The definition of bullying has changed every year or every other year for about the last 15 years. So it's been really a challenge. I think they're landing on something though that is going to stay. So I think that will be helpful for families and for staff certainly. So we, you know, like I said, overall, we welcome the change. I have a little concern with the definition of bullying and what perceived power means. You know, I think that
Yeah,
that's
it's a
going to
little
be
vague.
difficult as we implement that piece because you know, we may not see that as the administration investigating it, but a child may not even be able to, you know, kind of articulate that to us. So that I'm sure there'll be some challenges, but I think as a whole, we do a really good job as a district of immediately investigating, getting on top of things, communicating with parents, and handling these issues as they come up. So
This is a new form too, right? Do you
Yeah.
think it's gonna be like helpful that
I think overall it will be, because it's pretty, you know, overall succinct and straightforward, and it will help us communicate where things stand. And like I said, with this as well, we'll do some training over the summer for our administration and the staff when they come back in the fall.
So my only other point about this policy that I wanted to make is line 269 funding. And this says the school district shall in its discretion allocate sufficient funding to satisfy the requirements of this policy for all schools in the district. Such funding shall be distributed accordingly with superintendent approval for assessments and professional development, as well as for school community outreach, training, and technical assistance. And I would just like to point out, this is something that the state wants us to do and is not providing us with funding. And so therefore, we will have to come up with funding, whether it's additional or take it from what we have. I mean, do you think that that's going to be any sort of issue, or just going to come out of our regular professional development, et cetera?
Yeah, I really, you know, that was one thing we weren't sure why that's even written in there. You know, certainly you have the discretion to allocate funding wherever you want, you know, throughout. We have a professional development line, we have professional development time, never enough, but we do you know, have those available to us, and this is something we've done training, you know, just, you know, every year for staff, but also for, you know, administration has a lot of pages every other year at least.
Just makes me wonder what the state has in their sleeve.
Good.
Okay, so then we're good with moving that forward for rescind and replace with 2 reads.
Yes, I agree.
Excellent. So then the next policy is 6070.1 curriculum development, and then we would rescind 6070.2 curriculum. So Shipman and Goodwin say that 6070.1 curriculum development. It's not a mandatory policy. It may be repealed, but they recommend administrative review, which I believe that we did. And this sort of defines how we develop our curriculum. And you'll notice that this is actually a very different policy from the previous policy. The previous policy, 6070.2 curriculum, really talks about what we want the kids to take, the classes, arts, career education, consumer education, language arts, math, physical education, blah, blah, blah. Whereas this is 6070.1 curriculum development, and it's about our standards, profile of the graduate, the curriculum review council, how we go about creating curriculum and our review phases. And so they are very different policies. I don't think one really replaces the other. I think it's really.
It doesn't, just when I went through with Shipman, they basically said, if you want a curriculum type policy, they said go with 6070.1 and get rid of 6070.2. So that's why I kind of paired them
No, that's
together.
fine. It was just a thing that I
Yeah, they're-
noted, yeah. And they also said that 6070.2 curriculum is not mandatory, and they recommend repeal because the policy is addressed entirely by statute and is currently outdated. And it's a continued risk because of the ever-changing nature of the state curricular requirements. So I did ask Stephen Pinn, our chair of curriculum and student development, to review the policy. I touched base with him, and he agreed with Gail and the administration that they like the curriculum development policy.
I will say as well, the board sets forth what they feel is important as part of the curriculum and the graduation requirement. So you have that policy that determines what students will have to take to graduate.
So 6070.1 curriculum development will replace 6070.2, which we rescind. 2 reads on that.
Agreed.
Right. Now we are to policy 6146.3, credit for online courses. This is a prior version of our model policy. We recommend that the board revise the policy in accordance with the updated model.
It basically just takes out the old COVID language.
Okay,
That's what the edits really do.
thank you.
District body, distance learning, et cetera, that it just took that out. No more pandemics, we're done. Thank you.
So I think we could have the option of waiving the second read on this, but I'm okay either way. What do you think, Gail?
Well, since I haven't read it, maybe we should read it twice.
You want to do 2 reads on this?
I'm
I'm
kind
fine
of
with
indifferent.
that. As fun as this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I'm not answering. I'm surprised she left her phone in here. Anyway.
Seem important.
Oh, I should have answered
It
it.
doesn't
like-
say like child one or anything like that, so I believe it.
Okay, so credit for online courses, 6146.2. This says 3 on the agenda, sorry.
At the typo, sorry.
That's right. I just noticed it. I made sure that I wasn't,
Do you want me to get rid of the point?
yeah, let's just leave it 6146. Want to do that? We can do that?
I'm just double checking with the policy series, 1 second.
Is it 0.2 or 0.3?
Let you know momentarily.
Oh, good coffee break.
It's 0.3. And
Okay,
we can't get rid of a, how about 6147?
okay. We'll change it to 6147.
He's going to make fun of me, so I'm just making up numbers, I said I am.
Or that's what we do here. We like to get rid of the Dewey Decimal Point.
Yeah, we're just cleaning it up as we go.
All right, so we'll change that to 6147. Keep it at 2 reads, moving on. Last policy is 7551, naming/renaming of schools. We are moving the policy to the 1000 series, so we are changing it from 7551 to 1190. And, oh, in line 27, I would like a comma after the word scope of and a comma after schedule 4. Feel like it needs commas. So essentially, the only change here is the change of the number. Do you agree with the commas?
We just change it to the board will establish the scope and schedule of the committee's work.
Oh, that works. Whatever. Either put in 2 commas or,
Or we'll make it look better.
yeah, just grammatically correct. We are a school district. All right, so the only change here is really changing it from 7551 and moving it into the 1000 series. It'll be 1190. I think we can waive the second read on this.
Yep.
Excellent. And that's the end of policy for tonight.
And with
There's
that
public
ends.
comment? Lots of public comment tonight? No. Okay, then we will adjourn at 6:54.